Hi Ange, how's the squad looking ahead of this weekend?
Yeah, all good. No real issues after the other night in terms of the guys who participated. Tony Ralston is training with the main group now, but again, we kind of made a decision that this week would just be a sort of a topping up week for him, just to get him back to sort of full fitness. So he won't be available for Sunday, but should be ready to go from Monday next week. And Seagrass has still got a little bit of a calf complaint. Again, nothing major, but it'll keep him out of the weekend. And the medical department seem to think that he should be right to go from next week.
I think Kyogo's got 10 goals in his last 10 games. I know you've sort of rotated in a lot of areas in recent weeks and across the season, but as a manager, how good is it to have a striker who's not only consistently available but consistently scoring goals as well?
Yeah, no, he's been super. Obviously, as you said, it's probably the one area we haven't rotated as much as I normally would. But again, that's because we're kind of looking at him and looking at his physical output, and he's still very, very strong. There's no sign there that he needs a break. His work rate is obviously phenomenal, and we're always conscious that we don't want to overburden him as we did at stages last year. But I just think he's adapted now to the football here and the schedule here and our training, and like I said, he looks strong, but obviously getting Owen will help us in that area as well. As he builds up his fitness, at least we'll have an option there to make sure we don't overburden Kyogo. But knock on wood, and I shouldn't be talking about it, but he's just been outstanding from all aspects, and I thought his game the other night was brilliant.
Hi, and
Hello.
yesterday marked 1 year since that fantastic Glasgow Derby victory. It saw Celtic go top of the table. I just wondered how impressed you'd been with the squad's mentality and consistency to remain there ever since.
Yeah, look, it's been a big part of this team, I guess. Aside from the football, is just the character they've shown and resilience they've shown. I guess even before that night, obviously that night last year was significant because it was the first time sort of we went top of the table. As people always said, it's one thing chasing, but it's another thing being chased. But again, this group of players has handled it really, really well. I think the main reason is because we haven't really focused on that. We haven't really focused where our position on the table or what the points situation is. What we're focused on is trying to improve. And as good as we were that night a year ago, I think we're a better side now than we were last year. And that's always our aim. Can we keep improving? Can we keep sort of adding layers to our football and improving our players individually and us as a collective? And I think our form and our performances, again, since the break, we were very good before the break domestically, but since the break, I think have gone up a notch.
Yep, and since coming back from the World Cup, a lot of fans have commented on Dyson Maeda as one of the standout performers for the team. I just wondered if you'd noticed that an added confidence since he came back from the World Cup. Obviously performed very well over there. Have you noticed that in him?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair assessment. I think, look, obviously I know Dyson very well from coaching him back in Japan, and he's never sort of lacked confidence. I think he's always had a really strong self-belief. I just think he's now sort of, taking more responsibility. I think the one thing probably people notice him from day one, he's a very selfless player. He'll do the team stuff all the time. He'll work hard for the team defensively, offensively. But I think now he's taking more responsibility in the front third. I think, to be fair to him, I think Harry Kuehl's done a lot of work with him, which I think has helped him as well. And I think the World Cup just sort of added a layer to that of, there's no doubt going to a World Cup, competing against the best. He scored a goal at World Cup level. All these kind of things I think help. But I think it's more about now Dyson just wanting to take more responsibility in the team, take a really active role in being a protagonist, and as well as doing the stuff that he's always done. He's still working really hard. He still makes selfless runs for himself and his teammates, and he's been outstanding for us.
You said when you first came into Celtic that a big rebuild was required. I think it's 4 transfer windows later. How do you assess where the squad is now And are you surprised at just how successful the team has been throughout that rebuild? Just a stat I looked at earlier, 31 home games, you've won 28, drawn 3 and lost none. So even within that rebuild, the team has just been magnificent.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's no doubt it had to be a rebuild because, we just lost a huge number of players at the end of that year, aside from the fact that obviously I was coming in and, I felt like we needed to reshape the team. People tend to forget we had a lot of players in that second half of the year before I came on loan that went back to their parent clubs. We had players going to the Premier League. We had other players sort of leaving. So it needed a rebuild that was necessary, aside from the fact, like I said, that a new manager was coming in and I wanted to obviously, play a certain way. But within that context, I think I said from the start, I knew that I wasn't going to be given, 2 or 3 years to do this. I had to do it straight away and try and be successful as quickly as possible. And it's credit to the players, I guess, more than anyone else, and the staff that I've inherited, that they embraced that challenge, of understanding that major change needed to happen. But we were all working against, the clock in terms of not having the grace to be able to take time to be successful, and within that context, I think that the character of the players and all the staff and everyone involved has been outstanding. As you said, our record, I think my first 6 games in charge, we lost 3, but our record sort of since then has been brilliant, and like I said, a credit to everyone. But the nature of this group is not to rest on that and not to sort of dwell too much on that, but to look ahead and see what else we can achieve, how good we possibly can be, because we've shown that in 18 months, or just a bit over 18 months, and as you said, 4 transfer windows, that we can be a pretty good side, and with more work and more sort of determination to improve, who knows what we can achieve.
Finally, from me, Ange, a strong squad obviously poses its own challenges, talented and ambitious players wanting to be involved all the time. I guess it becomes a more complicated jigsaw puzzle for yourself and your coaching staff. But I mean, with so many options, how enjoyable do you find piecing it all together?
Yeah, look, as you said, it's just a different challenge. But from my perspective, it's what what needs to happen at a football club like this. As you said, I've got an ambitious group of players, but that's why they're here. And as I've said before, that guaranteed football doesn't exist at top clubs. There's always performance levels that you need to attain. You're always competing for your spot. As I keep saying, daily training here is as competitive as any game, because of the levels of quality we have. My role within that is to make sure that the players understand that every decision I'm making on the basis of what I think is best for our football club for that given game, and nothing is long lasting, nothing is permanent. These things can change on a daily basis, and it's up to the players to be ready to take their opportunities when they come along. And again, in fairness to this group, they are. Every time I've made changes, it hasn't affected our performance, hasn't affected our results. And I guess for me, that's that's the key. As you said, there's always challenges. Sometimes there's the bigger challenges when you don't have the options to within the squad, or there's a danger of complacency when players know they're kind of guaranteed a position. So, it's always a fine line. There's a balance there you need to strike. But at the moment, we've got an environment and a group of players who are enjoying being on the edge every day, and that's what I hope to continue.
Hi, Ange. You're approaching a period now where there's less midweek games. It's going to be games, 1 game a week, more or less. How's that going to change your approach, if at all? Could we see less rotation and maybe a more settled 11, people who are in the jersey, or are you still going to look to rotate the squad throughout that spell?
Yeah, look, as I said just now, it's just dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. Even when I've rotated the squad during our sort of busy time, particularly through Champions League, it wasn't a premeditated thing. It was still sort of using the best information I have before me. And I've said before that sometimes from the outside it's hard for people to see why I've made changes, but they're not in here every day. They don't have all the information that I have, and sometimes players are dealing with things on or off the field or within training or something that tells me, they're not ready for the weekend and I'll make a change. Or other times it's just, I think the opposition or the venue we're playing or the circumstance of the game needs something different. And, I think I've tried to put a squad together that gives us as many options as that. And, my job then is to use it the best way. And, even though we don't have midweek games, it doesn't mean that there won't be changes to the team. But again, all the changes, if there are changes, will be made because, I feel that the 11 we put out gives us the best chance of success. But I think the other thing that, has been really important for us is that, it's a squad game and substitutions and players coming on have made a huge difference to the way we play our football. And again, we've tried to be clear in our messaging to the players that whether you start or you finish a game, the expectations are the same, that you perform at the highest possible level. And again, the players have embraced that.
On the new players, Owen and Iwata, and they've had a couple of more days training. How are they settling in, and how close are they to maybe starting games for Celtic?
Yeah, they're still settling in, and Iwata's he's worked hard. He's been here a bit longer, and he's not far off. And certainly with it'll probably still take a couple of weeks to get him up to speed. And how close they are to starting is not dependent on their fitness. It's, again, as I said before, it's depending on where we're at as a team and what I think's required. But there's no doubt that he's not ready to start games yet. Tomoki is pretty close, so it just then comes down to selection. But I'm really pleased with both of them. They've settled in really well. The group's sort of brought them into the fold, and I can see from training every day they're getting used to the way we're training and the way we play. And as I said, from an all-round perspective, the squad's in a really good space.
And St Johnstone's pitch hasn't had a great press recently. I think even Callum Davidson said in midweek the players enjoyed playing at Fir Park because they could move the ball about better than they could at home. Is that something you have to take into account maybe when you're picking a team or setting up for this game, or just during the game? Yeah,
no, we'll obviously take it into account. To be fair, a lot of the pitches at the moment aren't in great nick, ours included. So it's something we've had to adjust to. Even last week's game. Was it Dundee United, with the wind and the pitch. So it's something we need to adjust to. But again, within that context, we've still tried to maintain our sort of clear focus that the solutions to that challenge still lie within doing the stuff we do really well. I still think, it'll still help us be successful. We don't want to change our game. We don't want to change our approach. And in terms of, team selection, nothing really changes in terms of that because, again, we still want to go out there and try and be a dominant team, work hard, defensively and be disciplined in our structures. Maybe they won't be as fluent in our football, but it doesn't stop us from being threatening, So it's just something we need to adjust to.
Can I just ask, sorry if this was mentioned during the week, but just with Georgios Giacomakis, is that you basically working on an assumption that he will be leaving at some point, just or is he back in the group? Or
yeah, no. As I said the other day, it's obviously it'll get concluded fairly soon. To be honest, it's not on my radar anymore, so I'm not. I'll probably hear it about the same time as you guys. Maybe if you're on Instagram, you'll hear about it earlier than me. But it's not on my radar. I don't expect him to be back in the group, but it hasn't been finalised yet.
Hi, Ange. You mentioned earlier Kyogo, the form that he's in and the goals that he's scoring. From your point of view, is he undroppable at the minute?
I don't know what drop means or undroppable means. I've never sort of thought in those terms. Every player is, starts the week on the same level, and then, as I said, I assess things as we go along. So I'd hate to think that, and certainly Kyogo doesn't play as if he's undroppable, the same way Callum McGregor doesn't play as if he's undroppable, or Joe Hart. They don't train like they're undroppable. So it's not something that's in my vocabulary or something that I try and set up as an environment. I said that Kyogo, it's not just about his goals. It's his work rate, his movement. The other night I thought was exceptional in terms of, in a very congested area, he was still finding pockets of space to break through, and I thought we really found him really well as we have, in Wednesday's game. So, there's no. I know that people love the cliches. There's no, best 11. There's no one that's undroppable. There's no one that's my favourite. As I said before, I love them all equally.
And Greg Taylor obviously scored the other evening against Livingston. Is that something you've specifically spoken to him about adding to his game in goals coming off that side?
No, it's not something we speak about specifically, but with the way our fullbacks play, we certainly expect them to get into those areas a lot more, and when they get into those areas, just because they're defenders doesn't mean they can't finish, Tony Ralston's scored a number of goals for us, a number of assists. Josip was the same. Berners had a couple of assists this year, including at St Johnstone the last time we played there. So we expect, attacking output from our fullbacks because of the nature of the way we play and the positions they get into. And there's no reason why Greg or any of our fullbacks shouldn't get on the score sheet with the way we play. And but at the same time, Greg's always looking to improve all aspects of his game, and I think you've seen that from where he was last year and sort of the way he's playing now, and even his progress from the beginning of the year to now. I think he's constantly looking to improve, and becoming more of an attacking threat is also part of that improvement.
Hi, Ange.
Hi, mate.
And there's quotes from Atati in the press this morning about how he approached you after his World Cup snub, and how he could better himself. And you had said to improve in the final third. Well, since that conversation, he scored 2 goals and registered 6 assists. Is that something that's pleased you?
Yeah, he got his 2 goals from fullback, so I think he took it literally when I said that. But yeah, no, look, I think it's part of his game. Look, like I said, Rayo's always, I think he falls into, all the coaches have got sort of individual responsibility. I think he falls under Gavin Strachan's portfolio, and Gavin will be the first to tell you he's the first in the door after a game asking for feedback. He's just that kind of player. He's constantly asking how he can improve, what areas he can get better in. I haven't had too many conversations. Usually when he comes to see me, he just really wants a real sort of clear direction. And last year was about, I felt his fitness levels weren't where they should be, and I felt he was dying away during the last parts of games, and he worked really hard on that. And I think he's a lot better this year, a lot stronger. And then, he asked me what the next layer is, and, I said for him to be the player he wants. And I know he's got it in him because he's always played in attacking ways, he gets into such great areas to have greater attacking output. And but it's, I'm not sort of dropping any pearls of wisdom for him. He knows the areas, and he's constantly going to be looking to improve. And for me, it's just about making sure that they also understand that all these things happen with time and with hard work and with the right attitude. It's not just about me saying something and then putting them into practice. And I had one conversation with him, but I guarantee you somebody like Gav's probably had 100 conversations with him, trying to make sure that all that information gets to him and he uses it well.
And Celtic have only dropped points on the road twice this season. Is that something that gives you an added confidence to go into an away game?
I don't know about confidence, but everyone will know, particularly here in Scotland, that playing away from home is always a challenge because, again, it's not just about the team you're playing, it's sometimes the conditions, sometimes the pitch. All teams at home have a little bit more self-belief. So the fact that we have been that consistent away from home this year is, again, a testament to the character of the lads and, their belief in our football. Some games we've had to work really hard to get the victory or make sure we didn't drop points. So, it's not about the confidence it gives you going into these games. It's just about knowing that the players have the character and the belief in our football to go and contest these games and know that if we play to the levels we know we can, that we're hard to stop.